To another session at the Colne Valley Postal History Museum. If you watched the videos last week, you'll have seen in the background a number of yellow and black AA village signs, a bit like this one here. So in this video, I thought we'd take a closer look at them. This is the largest collection, as far as I know, of these village signs anywhere in the country. We've currently got 62 in the collection, and we've also got some of the direction and warning signs as well. So I want to give you a bit of an introduction to them. I'm just going to go down into the garage, where there are quite a lot of them. As with last week, I haven't cleared up much. I've just moved things out of the way so you can see them. But I wanted to start with this rather wonderful specimen here at Grantham. These signs were first erected by the AA in 1912. And that's because local authorities had no duty to put up road signs at that point, and it was left to the motoring organisations to actually do something about it. They started with the A1, the main London to Scotland trunk road. As you can see here, this one is from Grantham, firmly situated on the A1. I believe that if you read the AA files, the first one was actually at Hatfield. And it was a slightly different design. If you look on my website at www.cvphm.org.uk and then click through to featured articles and AA village signs, or you can take the shortcut from the homepage, you'll see a picture of the one at Hatfield. It's actually a model, but it's the best representation I could find in colour. It's quite different to these, but what you're looking at here with the Grantham one is the first of the standard designs. And what I wanted to point out is that the AA badge on there is very different to what most people today think of as the traditional AA badge. It was literally just the two crossed letters. There were no wings, there was no wheel, and it didn't have the familiar shape to it. So this is a 1912 example. We've also got another one, so we'll just go and have a quick look at that, and then we'll come back and talk about some others as well. So out here is Crawley, and as you can see, it's exactly the same format, and if we come down lower, we can see that these were actually made by J.A. Jordan of Bilston in what is now the West Midlands, or I guess would have been Staffordshire then. Crawley, obviously, on the London to Brighton road, the main A23, so they obviously started with all the radial routes leading out of London. Now, the next design, at this point, there's no central bar, there's no background to the village name or the town name. The next design is much larger, and we're just going to skip across that one and have a look here. So if you look at Helmsley, you can see it's rather than 30 inch, which was the standard design, this one's about 40 inches across. It's got a lot more information on it, and it's also made by Jordan of Bilston. But now you can see the development of the badge. The AA badge has now become more familiar, and we'll see this when we look at the actual badges a little later on in this film. Still no wings and still no wheel. That had to wait for the merger with the Motor Union, and as far as I can tell, this happened at about 1920. The Motor Union was another independent motorist organisation, and when they merged, the badge develops this familiar format with the AA's logo in the middle and then the winged wheel at the top here, and you'll see a lot more of that as we go around. Now, you probably figured out this one's actually blue, so if we pull out a little bit more, these very early ones are actually by Bruton Signs of London N1, and rather than being black, they're a very deep blue. So this one is Whitecliff, Godstone and Croydon there, very close to Crawley. They actually came from the same collection, but the blue design was perpetuated across the country. So if we have a look over here, there's one from Montacute, which is down near Yeovil, and we've also got one local one from Colchester, which you'll see in a minute. Very distinctive. They're quite rare, the Bruton ones. Most of the signs that you will see don't say Motor Union. They look a bit like this. That is a standard Franco sign. Franco Signs of London. If we just zoom in down here. There you go. And they seem to have had the contract for most of them. And actually, if I just hold it there, you can see the difference between the black and the blue. So Framlingham, of course, lovely little town in Suffolk with its famous castle and post boxes. And a very nice sign. I don't often get them in such good condition. If we look at the Caterham one down here, you can see the areas of repair where that's been patched in. Montacute was also heavily restored, but have a look at some of these. This is a Brandeston, which is these are all waiting to be erected somewhere. I'm kind of running out of wall space. Brandeston, Wickham Market, Debenham, all in Suffolk. Next to it is a rather faded one. The yellow's faded quite badly on this one, so it's not too badly corroded. I probably won't restore that. I'll keep it as it is. Obviously Bedfordshire, Elstow, the old brick pits. But have a look at this. That's what's left of Columpton. And it's a shame because it's a lovely Bruton. It is actually a blue one. But clearly that had been cut and used probably to make a pigsty or an allotment fence or compost heap. And that's all that's left of it. But it can be restored, and obviously we've got the steel backing plate on there, so we'll probably have a go at least painting that in, if not actually doing it properly. I've also pulled out a few just to show the width and breadth of the country. And Effailwyn there in Cardiganshire, and then here we've got Dickleborough in Norfolk, Addlestone in Surrey. These are all Francos. And then perhaps the most attractive design of all of them is the badge shape one. So Long Melford is a badge shape one, erected by the AA and MU. So that's about 1921, 1922. And then Haddiscoe up here. This had to be completely restored because the black had gone. There was no black on this. It all had to be done again. But the badge shape one's very, very sought after. There are still a few on the street which have had the erected by AA and MU cut off, and in some cases have had the top cut off as well. Next to that is Copel, and this is quite interesting because although that is a Franco sign, it doesn't actually say Franco on the bottom, and the typeface is different, and so is the logo and the wording, the Automobile Association. If we compare it to the one next to it, it should look like that if it was a standard Franco, but it clearly is different. But no maker's name, so we can't really tell who did that one. Bircham Newton and Bergapton, a couple of nice Norfolk ones there, just catching the reflection. Not much I can do about that really. There we go, look. Again, restored but done very nicely. And if we swing round here, we've got a Yorkshire Bainton, which is a bad shaped one. And then quite interestingly here, a Scottish one, Lagan Bridge. And as you can see, a long way from London, 570.5 miles from London. But unlike all the others, the Scottish ones were jointly erected with the Scottish RAC, Royal Scottish Automobile Club, as well as the AA. And this was also true in Ireland. They were erected with the Royal Irish Automobile Club. I don't have an Irish one, unfortunately. I would very much like one. Next to that is another one that's quite a long way from London, Doulo in Cornwall, just near Loo, 227.5 miles. I like the fact that we can get 570 miles away and they're still counting in halves. And we've got a warning sign down here, which we might as well do while we're in the garage. Look, road up. These triangular ones you can find in various formats. That's the later one, which just says Automobile Association. Mostly made by Franco. We've got a maker's name down there, look. Franco London. You'll see a couple more of those in the collection. Let's have a close look at the maker's name on the badge sign. Now, it doesn't say Franco, it says F. Francis and Sons Limited, Deptford, which of course it became Franco London. It's the same company, but the earlier ones actually do show the full name of the company making them. Let's go and have a look at some others. So we saw Grantham earlier on. We've got two more bad shaped ones here. Barkway, which has a bit of an interesting history, and Whitney. Whitney was the first bad shaped one that I got. I'm going to just see if we can get rid of that reflection. I might even turn the light off. Let's try it. Yeah, that's better. I think we can cope with that. Let's come right back here. So, Barkway, which is actually between London Stansted and, let's say, Royston. It's actually a radio direction finding beacon. If you're a private pilot, you'll know to set Barkway. That sign came back from Florida. And I think that is probably because most of these direction signs were taken down when World War II started. And they would have just been lying around. In many cases, the local road menders took them down and used them in the Dig for Victory campaign to make allotments or pigsties, which is how quite so many of them have survived. The fact that this one came back from Florida would tend to indicate that an American airman picked it up and probably took it back with him. And it does make you wonder just how many others there are. Now, they didn't just signpost the villages, they also put up warning signs to help motorists. And here we've got a superb one, look. Children, safety first, please. And that is also a Franco. And that was restored for me by the wonderful Walden Restorations, who did a splendid job. And if you're thinking that the paint doesn't match, that's because I asked them to make it obvious that it had been restored. Let's go through and have a look at some of the others. On the door here, we've got a couple of the cast crests, which would have appeared on the door of an AA telephone call box. So the top one here would have had the number of the box in there. And then on the other side of the box, it would have just had the standard crest. Let me have a look on the wall here, because they're just about everywhere. That's Popham in Hampshire, which very close to where I grew up in Basingstoke. And then at the top there, Oswestry, showing Llangollen and Shrewsbury. That's obviously on the A5. We've got two from Shropshire. The other one is quite interesting, and it's just down here. So if we swing round, we've got Little Ness, and this is the only one, as far as I know, that's got Roman numerals on it, because as you can see at the top, the next nearest village is Royton 11 Towns. And if you want to know why it's called Royton 11 Towns, you'll have to go and read Wikipedia, because it's quite a complicated story. Next to that is another non-standard typeface, and it is quite similar to the Bedford one, so perhaps this was another batch, because again the word "the" has turned up, and we've got the slightly heavier logo. If I do that, you can see how fine the Francis one is on the right. This one is a bit chunky, and that's for Bettisgarman, which is up in Snowdonia. As I said, I haven't moved everything out of the way, so you're only getting the tops of these. If we come over here, we've got another Basingstoke one. It's Hartley Whitney on the A30, which at the time would have been the main road to Southampton from London. So again, the radial route. And the A12, obviously, the radial route to the east. That's the Colchester one, showing Whittam and Rowhedge. Incidentally, my colleague Alan has got a blue one of these. He's got the other version from the other side of Colchester, and it's got different villages on it. So I think in the case of the big towns, they were probably positioned around the outside, whereas in the villages, they were most definitely in the centre. And down the bottom here, we've got another blue one, I think. This is Way Hill. And again, it's by Bruton of London. And you can see really where the black areas where the rust preserve has gone on. It is really just very, very dark blue when you get close to it. Let's have a look behind the door. We here have Great Marlow in Buckinghamshire, Hanley and High Wycombe. This is the one I took to Sir Bill McAlpine's open day. This is the one he wanted to try and buy off me. And I said, no, sorry, you know, there are some things that money can't buy, and this is one of them, which gave me great personal satisfaction. Down below that is Nees Hall with Ollerton and Newark. That's a Nottinghamshire one. And then on the door is the box number from an AA telephone box. Again, cast, box number 20. There are lists of these. I should look that up and find out where it is. But it's just starting to rain, so let's see if we can get some of this done before it really pours down. Here we've got a Devon one, Witheridge with South Molton and Tiverton. That came from a vendor in Barnstaple whose father had dug them up in the garden of a house that he bought. So again, burying them is not necessarily the worst thing. It can protect them. Over here, another Essex one, Thorpe-le-Soken. These again are all Franco. And then this one, which was actually the very first one I found in a scrapyard in Ipswich at Sproughton, weathering set, quite close to the Midi, the Mid-Suffolk Light Railway. And that was the first one I found. It was not in brilliant condition, but it was okay. And I gave the princely sum of £70 for it. Today, you'd be hard pushed to find a good one for less than 250. Really superb ones, changing hands for 500 or so. Cambridgeshire, Great Gransden. And then if we come across a little further out, we've got a very nice one from Devon here with some great names on it. Not the water butt, but look, Ottery St Mary. All three names, Sidmouth, Ottery St Mary and Seaton, were all carried by West Country Pacifics. So unsurprisingly, that one turned up at Great Central Railwayana. I think it was the third one I got in the collection. Now there are some on the wall over here. New Biggin is a Cumbria one. It's one of a pair that came from a dealer in Keswick. The other one is down here at Ellen Hall. And then behind that, we've got a couple just hiding behind this Macken Knox. Stoven, Southwold and Beccles, obviously another Suffolk one. And another Bedfordshire one, Turvey, on the A428 between Bedford and Northampton. Now, if we come at... oh, something set the chickens off. What's the matter, chicks? Now, we'll come to that in a minute. Another nice direction, warning sign there, Icebound Road. And behind that, Tittleshall. There's a great little name, isn't it? Tittleshall, near Fakenham in Norfolk. One of the nicest signs in the collection, I think, and fairly recently restored by Walden Restorations, is this one. No race today at Ascot. The race name is interchangeable, so that you could change that for Cheltenham or wherever else you needed to put it. Let's come across here. Another big warning sign. I'm going to have to move the bush out of the way for these. So, in fact, actually, let's go the other side of the bush, because I think it might be easier to get in here. There we go, look. Drive slowly, many dangerous turnings. And that came from the Lake District, and it's a AA and Motor Union, which is quite unusual to have it all spelt out at the top like that. And then next to it, another Welsh one, Porthmadog, the old spelling, with Penryn Hydreth and Criccieth on it. And then further down there we've got Codnor, which we can take a quick look at if we get the triffids out of the way. This is what happens when your wife's really into gardening. So, Codnor, as you can see, has been used for target practice by small boys, probably with a pellet gun. And the same fate seems to have beheld Leavesden, which is in Hertfordshire as well. So quite a bit of surface damage there. That's not unusual for these signs. The AA had a way of trying to get the little boys not to do that, and I'm going to show you that now along with some of the badges. So beneath the main signs would have been one of these reward signs. So £2 reward paid for information leading to the conviction of any person or persons damaging these signs. And the idea was that as these would be lower, that the kids would have a go at throwing stones or firing their pellet guns at these and leave the main sign alone. Now this board also has the collection of AA badges on it. And you're probably wondering why there's so many there. So let's go in and have a quick look. So there's that very early one I was telling you about earlier on. So no wing and no wheel. So that's an early one. And then next to it, perhaps the first joint badge after the merger. But what we've also got along here are some nice foreign ones. So here we've got Malaya and Singapore. Down here we've got East Africa. This shape is for a commercial vehicle, and next to that is South Australia. If we come along here, we've got another chromed 1950s commercial vehicle. The small silvered one there is for a motorcycle. We come right down to the end, we've got Rhodesia. Above that, New Zealand and South Africa. And above that, Ceylon. This is probably one of the earlier and nicest ones. This would have been from about 1918, 1920, just after the merger. And you can sometimes find these with a little metal flag on the top here. That indicates that the person was a committee member. They had their own special badges. And obviously the later one there as well, the square AA from the 1970s. Let's walk down and have a look at some of the... Oh, we missed one. One over here, look. What have we got there? Burrington. Cholmondeley and Burrington. So that's a Devon one. That's the other one that came from Barnstaple. Now, you'll see some of the others in last week's videos because they're on the side of Shed 2. But let's go and have a closer look because we've got some interesting ones down here. Well, they're all interesting, obviously. But, well, to me anyway. Completely covered by growth here is Kessingland. I don't mind it being covered by growth because as you can see the corrosion is quite bad on this one, so the plants are actually doing it a favour. Next to that is Barnardiston, which is probably the nearest to Halstead. It's just outside Haverhill on the road to Bury. Again, it was quite badly corroded and it's been had a heavy repair on it, so I don't mind it being behind the clematis. I said that people cut bits off them. And this one, another Basingstoke one, Sherborne St John, you can see it's had the wings taken off the top. There's one still in situ at Bridge Street in Suffolk that's had the bottom taken off as well. I always keep an eye on that one. Next to that is another Surrey, which is Brockham Green in Dorking. Again, showing the slightly earlier variation of the wording at the top there, Automobile Association and Motor Union. And then we've got two by Jordan of Bilston, which are much, much bigger. So if I just pull back without tripping over the chicken wire, you can see that they are, that's a 30-inch. That's got to be at least 40, hasn't it? Those two. Both from Devon, look. Umberley, which on the Crediton Road, and Smallbrook, which is on the road to Crediton from Exeter. And these have got the cipher down there, look, for Jordan Bilston. So both made by Jordan, and again without the dark background to the village name, and with the early badge that we just saw, without the wings and the wheel, and so before the merger. Now on the end of the shed there's a few which are in not quite such good condition, probably waiting to be restored really. Actually, Cannon Pine I was bad, but I had sort of patched it up. Thursford, as you can see in... sorry, I should say Cannon Pine is Herefordshire, obviously, as it's got Hereford on the top. Thursford in Norfolk, in particularly bad condition. That's pretty much how they are when they arrive. Hayden, also in Norfolk. I paid way too much for this. I thought I was going to get it for 20 quid at the auction, outside Hayden Forge, and we ended up paying nearly 200 after another bidder stepped in. And next to it, West Langdon in Kent. So there you go. That's a trip round the museum looking at the AA village signs.